Hello everyone, Joe from Central Jersey, Conrail and N-Scale. Welcome back. So this month, April 2019, I'm going to give you a little tour of the layout and show you, update you on the status, where we're at in certain sections, and walk you through what I've done so far. So I'm going to go get the camera in position, and I'll start walking around the layout. Okay, so I'm going to start our tour out here in the family room. This also functions as a crew lounge out here during the op sessions. This is the section that we just were working on last month. Okay, so we're going to start our tour down here in Dayton on the Amboy Secondary. So this first industry here, this is RJR Foods. They are a distribution warehouse for Del Monte, bringing in fruit products on refrigerated box cars and then being shipped out on truck. This is a Walthers Central Beverage Distribution Kit. Still have a lot of more work to do and paint work. Now this facility here is the BASF Expanded Polystyrene production facility in Dayton. It's not really a true representation of the facility because I'm not going to scratch build. I'm just using readily available kits, and this is the Walthers Superior Paper Mill. Did a lot of changes to the structure from the kit, mainly here in the brick warehouse. I turned it sideways and cut it in half because otherwise it would have taken up the whole scene. All these tanks and stuff are from that kit. This little building here is the roof off of that, and then some piping stuff that I had from Shapeways. So what I've done for the brick structure, because there were so many windows in here, I kind of cobbled together this interior. I used some PVC pipe and some other regularly accessible pieces from sprues and plastic. It looks real rough, but it's going to be inside the building, so you're not going to see it all that well. It was a fun little project to do. I just kind of put it together in one afternoon, and it serves the purpose to make you think that there's something inside the warehouse. So when we put the windows in and stuff, it'll look really good. And then this back here, this is the New Jersey Turnpike Bridge. I'm using that to kind of obscure the hole. Also, the turnpike ran right by the facility. This is going to be a 6 lanes, 3 in each direction, north and southbound lanes. I had to cut back on it a little bit because I think there was actually 2 truck lanes in each direction, but it's just not going to fit all in this one section. And then this little project here, this is just to have a little fun. Someone had asked, how come I don't put anything out on this edge? So I had this building. It was a microengineering building that I had for N-track. So I cut the one wall out and then made an opening in the fascia so we can put a detailed interior in there. So I have all the interior parts that came in from Shapeways, so I just got to get started painting. And looking here, I got all the equipment installed on the fascia that we need, the bill box, the switch panel's done, the UP5 is all powered up, our throttle pocket, and our drink holder. So this section's coming along pretty good. The scenery's, as you can see, the styrofoam's all in, so here this week, going to get started on painting so that we can probably have this wrapped up by the end of May. Okay, so here's the staging yard. Not too much has changed since we last did a tour. There's the control panel for SA, and what that does is that controls the lower level and the 2 Hilux. These are all the switches for the Y. There is block signaling detection in there. That's what these little white LEDs are that are. Right now they're not illuminated because there's nothing in the block. These are the signal controls here, and of course the key to power the panel on and off. And that is our control panel for the staging yard, and that's how we control all the turnouts there. Over here on the wall I have all the bill boxes that we need for all the car cards for all the trains that are staged. So currently the way I'm running the staging yard now is once the op session is over, the trains will be removed. This train here and this one here. And this block of cars here as well. These are all the cars that we use for the session. So in between sessions, I'm going to store these off the staging yard to make room so I can block out trains that I want to run through on the layout in between sessions. So to facilitate doing this, moving these trains around easier, what I've done is I've got these bins and I've labeled them drawer 1, 2, 3, all the way to drawer 12. And inside each drawer is 3 bins, and I've numbered each bins in sequential order. So there's 1 through, I think I'm up to 24. And what you do is the bins are numbered, and that's where you'd put the group of cars in each bin. And once I do that, the the associated car cards, go in these little boxes that I've made out of foam core, and you would just slide them in there so you can keep track of all the cars. And I use these green markers just to indicate what train or what section of the train it is. So it's working out really well. It makes it more easier to find trains when I need them and set them up. So, okay, so if you notice back there, the hole in the wall, for those of you who are seeing this for the first time, that's where the trains come out of the staging yard and go into the lower level. And as I've shown you already, that's what's indicated on this panel here. So I'm going to go take you around to the layout room and show you the lower level. Okay, so under the engine facility here at South Amboy, this is where the big Helix is. So if I get down here, you can see that that's where the Helix is. And way in the back there is SA Junction. That's the Y at the bottom. Okay, so here's SA Junction. This is the Y at the bottom. So if trains are coming out of staging, which would be representing of Newark, Oak Island, and want to go to South Amboy, they would go up this leg here and run up. If trains are going from Camden out of staging to Lakehurst, they would run on that back track there that goes this way. So that's what the purpose, that's what all this is down here. And as you can see, that's the view up in the big Helix, and that is the bottom of the engine facility there. The Helix, it's running really good. Was very happy that I decided to make it the oval. These little straight sections in here give the train time to pick up some speed before the next curve, and it's got a 2% grade going all the way up. Minimum radius is 14 inches on those curves. So while we're here, I'll show you all this. This is my block detection system. It's the BDL16 by Digitrax, and that just reports the status of the lower level. This way I'm able to have operators know if there's a train down there, so we don't have any kind of like mid-train collisions or anything like that. Now if I pan over here, this is probably, you don't get to see this much, this is the computer that I have hooked up to the layout. I have two connections into the layout, a Digitrax PR3, and that is a ESU Loc programmer. And then I'm using JRMRI software to run the layout. I also have a panel that's made that you can see the status of the lower level from the computer here. So here's SA control panel. So if I just say short out the rails on the big Helix, you'll see that the light, yellow light comes on. That tells you that there's occupancy. So it works out really good. I like it. It took a little time to set up, but it was well worth it. And as we're panning across here, this is the electrical cabinet. This is what the status is so far. I have 4 blocks set up. I have DB220 by Digitrax that runs 2 different blocks, one for the Browns yard and one's for the engine facility. Then I have a DCS 100 and a DB150. The DB150 is the booster for the lower level, and the DCS 100 is the command station that controls the main line. And then down here is all my ATX power supplies. The one here, which is these 2 breaker switches here, that controls all the 12 volt for all my tortoises and my switch panels. And then this one here, these 2 breaker switches here, are for all the lighting effects. So now as I go down here, this is the lower level. If trains were coming out of Camden, out of staging, and wanted to go to Lakehurst in a northbound direction, they're running on this lower level here. Many of you probably haven't seen this in a long time. It goes through the hole here. This is just a false wall that I built to support the peninsula and kind of break up the room. And that lower level continues over this way, over the bookcases here. Some of those wires need to be hung up there. And again, this is for trains that are going from Camden to Lakehurst in a northbound direction. The unusual thing that's been happening over the last couple of months is these boards are starting to swale. So I'm going to have to remove sections of this and rebuild it. There's one there, and then one right here. So I don't know why only these 2 sections have done it. The rest of it is pretty straight. So I'm going to have to get some better plywood and relay this track. And here's looking up in the middle of the mini Helix. This is a smaller of the 2. This is only about 4 levels because that run of track that we followed around, it has a grade, about a 1% grade. So I did that to kind of gain some elevation so I didn't have to make another big helix. And then you go up here. This is a circular one. It's not oval. I wish I had made this oval, but I'm at the point now where I'm so much invested. If I do try to tear it down, and we're going to have to rebuild this whole end section here. These two tortoises here, one here, one there. That one is for my braking mechanism over in Tom's River, and this one is for the turnout at the top of the helix that you'll see. Okay, so since we've been following pretty much the route of a northbound train out of Camden, I'm going to pick it up from here. So this is the top of the mini helix. This is Lakehurst, and that track in the back is the Toms River Industrial. So the Toms River Industrial pretty much goes down over to here to Sibagigi and services this facility here. Sibagigi, I'm actually excited to get this done. Unfortunately, it looks like it's a long way off because a lot of cool buildings in here. They made resins and dyes. A lot of controversy in this facility because it was a super fun cleanup site. There was a lot of pollution, and it was closed in 1989. So this building here is a mock-up of the steam plant, and there's a water tower there. That's kind of what the foam core is kind of just leaning up there. And then this is building 105, which is one of the production buildings. And then this is building 108, which is the resin production building. Now, so the mock-ups kind of have come in handy lately because during the op sessions I found out that this building is a little too tall. We're going to have to cut this down, maybe make it 1 story, because operators are complaining that they can't see the spur in the back behind the building. Bridge here, this mock-up, this is Route 37, State Highway Route 37. And that would cross right there in front of the plant. This signal that you see here wasn't prototypical on this line, that it was all dark territory, but however I needed a signal in there to indicate to the operators that the lower level was open or closed. So whoever's operating the SA control panel in the staging yard controls these signals. So in this area here, when we get to scenery, this will be the town of Lakehurst. There was a post office in here and some other local businesses. The one thing that's going on here is this is the Route 70 overpass. Conrail used this area here in the early years as kind of a crew change location. There was a trailer. They had a small siding under the bridge that they either stored a local engine and a caboose. All the information I could find was that Conrail pretty much stopped doing this by like 1982 or 83, but I went ahead and put it in there anyway. Okay, so now we're proceeding north on the main line, and this area here represents Lakehurst and Jackson, and this is the prototype was the Southern Secondary. That's the name of the route. Those cars in the back over there, that is for Clayton Sand Pit. For a short time, Conrail was experimenting, trying to generate traffic from Clayton, and they were shipping out long strings of open-top hoppers with sand. Conrail also brought down the conveyor train to try and court Clayton into becoming a regular shipper. The service only happened for about a year, and then Clayton made the determination that they weren't going to ship out by rail. The next industry that we have here in Lakehurst is the Naval Air Station. Lakehurst had a spur. In later years, it was used for the cleanup of the Beaumark missile site, and they were shipping out debris by rail. So that's what I'm representing here. All right, so you notice back here, this little staging area underneath, that represents the Southern Secondary heading north into Red Bank. And you remember from our operations videos, that's the area that's down there. I got 2 cameras, uncoupling magnets, and everything is operated through the panel remotely here. It's working out really well. I got to replace the springs on the tortoises to get more tension, and I think that'll solve all of our problems. So you see the track runs around. It comes upgraded about a 2.5% grade, running underneath Lakewood, and then comes up over here at Toth. Generally speaking, because of the grade, you can only run about a 4 or 5 car train in here because it's real tight with 2 engines down in here, and it doesn't work too well. If you do it with 1 engine, though, it works really well. So that's the trade-off. If you want it to run good, it has to be short trains. So eventually, when I do the scenery here, there'll be a removable section in here in case there's any problems, and also for cleaning. But if you look up underneath here, you can reach up in here through this way if you have to. Okay, so proceeding north out of Lakehurst on the main line, that is the turnout for Clayton. And then we'll come to our first grade crossing here, Route 88. If you notice the pencil marks, I kind of made that for my operators so they knew where the crossings were going to be. There is going to need to be some rework done down here. So first off, Route 88 was kind of like the main road through downtown Lakewood. There was this building here was a really nice building that I definitely want to do. Then there was other businesses along Route 88 that'll be kind of just put in. Route 88 will kind of make a turn here and come out to the backdrop over here. The main industry down in Lakewood was Danasso's building products, Danasso Brothers. They dealt in all kinds of building supplies, sheetrock, lumber, big traffic generator. Usually got about 6 or 7 cars a week down here of supplies. What will happen is with the scenery, there will be a big storage building in here that runs long ways this way to kind of act as a view block of the track coming up out from underneath. So the rework. So what I'm talking about is pretty much from that curve there all the way down through Lakewood is going to have to be relayed. The big reason is the turnouts. I'm going to have to rebuild my turnouts using fast tracks. I'm really not happy with the way these microengineerings are operating. Also, a couple of the transitions into the curves and the curved turnouts are real rough. I'm thinking about replacing those 2 curved turnouts down there with fast tracks as well. So here in the summertime, when I get to a stopping point on scenery, I'm going to get down here and relay all this track. And also the other thing is I'm going to try and space these 2 turnouts out more to give me more room for the grade crossing there, because if you notice it's a little tight. Okay, so moving north out of Lakewood to this point here, this junction is called Toth. This was a milepost that was on the Conrail timetable, and all that indicated was the end of the track. What happened was the Freehold secondary came into Farmingdale, and there was a Y with the southern secondary, and that milepost was called Toth. So that's kind of why I've adapted that to this location here. And then the line diverges and goes to the north, which would go down into that staging towards Red Bank, and then it proceeds south in this direction through Lakewood. So right on the border of Freehold and Howell, or Farmingdale, is the Prestone antifreeze facility. They brought in rail cars of ethylene glycol and plastic pellets to produce antifreeze for sale. So that's my rough mock-up of the buildings and the tanks. All that stuff's probably going to be scratch built. So proceeding north out of the junction there at Toth, we come into Freehold. Now what's going to happen here is along the backdrop behind those box cars is going to be County Route 522 will run along the backdrop. There are some businesses that'll do business flats there's some building flats along the back there. There was a team track in Freehold. Various shippers in the area used it. There was a brick sale company that got box cars there. Also JCP&L got loads of telephone poles and the occasional transformer there. Now this is Freehold Lumber. This site changed hands multiple times. So this facility was originally a Weyerhaeuser lumber yard. Then it was sold to Triangle Lumber, and then the next tenant after that was, and the current owner is Builders General. What they had, it was a covered dock right there to unload plywood and sheetrock products. This kind of cover here allowed them to work and keep the products dry when it was raining. There was numerous buildings that were here for warehouses, and then they had this area here where they put the I-beam cars for unloading in a parking lot. This bridge here represents US Highway 9. and you're looking in the northbound direction towards New York City. So still a lot of work to do on that. So this here on the end of the peninsula, this represents the Battle of Monmouth State Park. So what's going to happen is Route 522 is going to come out from under that bridge and curve through the scene and go off. This area here, there will be a bridge because there was another side street that went underneath the railroad. So coming north out of the end of the peninsula here, from Freehold, we go into Englishtown. This is my hometown here. Here in Englishtown, there was two businesses. This was actually the previous location of Triangle Lumber before they moved north to the other facility. And this is the Agway. Agway got seed and fertilizer products in bulk and then packaged it up for local farmers to purchase. And then Triangle Lumber here got loads of wood. Now this track here, this one here on the outside, this was an original passing siding that was ripped up sometime in the late 60s. I found it on old maps from the Penn Central. However, when Conrail had it, they didn't have this, but I needed to re-put this in, even though I'm in the mid-80s, to facilitate runaround moves while switching. So proceeding north out of Englishtown, we come this area here. There'll be a road. This is a lake. There'll be a road through here that crosses the railroad. There'll be the Englishtown Fire Department, which you can see down there. Then there'll be then we come into Jamesburg. This is Manalapan Lake here. There was a dam with a spillway that kind of was in a canal that went underneath the railroad, and 522 crosses right on the other side of the railroad there. There'll be a grade crossing that crosses the railroad here and an intersection on the other side of the railroad with 522. Downtown Jamesburg, a lot of businesses and houses right on Route 522, and that'll be what's over there. There was also a memorial park. As you can see, I've been printing out aerial photographs to kind of get my bearings on how I'm going to put this area in, because within the next couple of weeks, I'm actually, now that I've resolved the Y at Jamesburg, I'm going to start adding styrofoam in so I can build my scenery base. This little area here, Gatsmer Avenue, will cross the Y, this little section right in here, and run off towards the backdrop over here by the hole. There's a little memorial park that's over in here. That's the Jamesburg's Veteran Memorial Park. So I'll put that in. And then over on this side, where these papers are laying, there was a convenience store and a gas station. So looking at the center of the Y was actually a Pennsylvania Railroad station. So I'm going to look at either scratch building or finding a kit that'll work to fit in that little spot there and kind of make it the abandoned station. This little hole back here, this is that track that goes over to the Dayton area that I showed you in the beginning of our tour. So proceeding north out of Jamesburg through the Y, we come into the limits of Brown's Yard. Brown's Yard is pretty much done. You notice along the backdrop I put some cutouts of trees that I printed off the internet to try and blend the scene into the backdrop. We have a total of 10 tracks available here in Brown's Yard. The main line runs right through the middle, which is right in here. And then track 1 is over here. I still have to finish this area of scenery. It's going to pretty much be an open field and transition into the town of Jamesburg. This is where the yard office is, right here by the panel. That's a BLMA structure. That's pretty much done. I just got to put the lights in there. The only other thing left to do at Brown's Yard is the scale house. I got to scratch build that to put that in there. Now, there wasn't a scale at Brown's Yard. However, I thought it would be a good addition. And eventually what I'll do is I'll add a Boulder Creek scale unit in here. But for now, we're just using our dice to weigh the cars. And by adding that scale track, pretty much what that's done is it's made a bypass to the yard ladder. So this way, when the yard crews are out here working, you can still scoot engines around to get into the facility. So this is the Amboy engine facility. This was originally a Pennsylvania Railroad facility. that serviced the New York and Long Branch. Pennsylvania Railroad would change out their steam locomotives for electric here and for the run into New York City. This was actually 5 miles to the east of Brown's Yard. However, I put it in and connected it into Brown's Yard so that we could use it. I scratch built these buildings, the engine house and the sand tower. So when I had this building mocked up initially before I completed the scene, operators had a tendency to come in here and lift the building off so they could see what was in the engine house. So what I've done is made the roof removable, and I put a detailed interior in there so this way you could see what engines are in there during the operating session. Now this building in the back, that represents the coal thawing sheds that were outside South Amboy. What would happen was the Pennsylvania Railroad would bring coal down to Tidewater here, and it would be frozen, so they'd have to thaw it out before they took it out to the dumper out there on the Raritan Bay. Then they would transload it into barges to be shipped over to Manhattan. So connecting this engine facility to the yard made it that much nicer, so this way I could have a place to put all my power and have it displayed. So right here, in this location here, we're still within the limits of Brown's Yard, and there is a branch that comes off here, and that's the Sayreville running track. The main line then curves down and around, which is this track on the outside here, and goes down past the trees to the upper level of the Helix, which is the big Helix that I showed you in the beginning. This other track here is our switching lead, so yard crews can operate and switch the yard out without interfering with the mainline operation. Okay, so from this point here, the Sayreville running track comes down this way and crosses Bordentown Avenue. Now these next scenes are almost complete. They're about 90% complete. There's still a lot of detail work that I got to do and come in here, like road striping, signs, and more vehicles. So Bordentown Avenue goes this way and runs into the backdrop. That's an actual picture there on the backdrop of Bordentown Avenue. So our first industry here in Sayreville is the Sunshine Biscuit Corporation. I decided to model this one because my grandfather worked here for 20 years. It's a scratch built. It is compressed. The way I compressed it was these sections here, this center here, was actually 3 of these, same size but 3 more blocks. To fit it into the area, what I did is I cut 2 of them out. But everything else is pretty much the way it is. Now, it's also cut in half this way. So there was same distance in the other direction. So it was a rather large facility. This was the warehousing section in here, and this was the production facility where the ovens were in these 2 sections. They did receive rail shipments of flour in this area here, and vegetable oil and corn syrup over in this area. This road in front of you right here, this is Journey Mill Avenue, and as it curves around to go back down into the Parlin section. The track continues this way. I've added the runaround in here. The runaround was actually further down this way, but I moved it up here to facilitate switching moves. This industry here, this is Capital Steel. They received loads of scrap and they made steel rebar. Actually what happened was this track would have curved around and probably come all the way back here. And that's where the steel mill was, and it was a large complex. So all I did to represent that industry is I just put the one little track in there so we could put like 3 or 4 gons of scrap. Now moving closer towards the Raritan River, this little section here, the Raritan River would be here in the aisle where you're standing, and you'd be looking at the docks of the National Lead Facility. The National Lead Facility, what they did is they brought in aluminite ore and they mixed it with sulfuric acid through an oxidation process to make titanium pigment. So this was a rather large facility, so I tried to do it as best justice as I could with this, with the amount of space I had. This is a Walthers North Island refinery kit. That is a Tomy Tech cooling tower over there. And then all the rest of the components in the back here are all 3D printed. The unloading rack for the tanks and the storage tanks. This building here is a Ricks building that I kind of kit bashed to fit in here. And that was the control maintenance building for the facility. There was also another large squarish building associated in here for the aluminite processing, but I didn't add that. Now the building in the back here on the backdrop, this is the Middlesex MUA. It was a sewage treatment plant. In the early days, they received liquid chlorine by rail, and that's what that spur is over here. I just kind of put in these cooling towers and stuff because they had a bunch of equipment over here by the rail spur that looked like that to facilitate, all the water treatment tanks. I just glued up a picture that I found on the internet. Eventually, I want to put some fencing in here to fence off the facility, and it would go across the rails and over along this side. Okay, so from looking at Sayrehurst this way, you'll notice this little tail section. This is a new addition. During the operating sessions, we found that there just wasn't enough room. We had a little bit more room to make operations that much easier. So I made this removable section. It bolts onto the benchwork here, and it just gives you about enough room for about 3 cars in here. So now you can pretty much switch most of your stuff and put all your empties down here. It just makes the operations go that much smoother. The other thing that I've done is I found a lot of the operators were very apprehensive around working here with this tall structure because they were afraid they were going to knock stuff over. So what I've done is I've made some sneeze guards out of plexiglass and bolted it to the layout. It is very easily removable with nuts and screws, so if I want to take photographs, I can pull this off and you won't get the glare. It works out really well. All the operators were had a very positive response about it. And I noticed the people working down here seemed a little more at ease. And it makes me feel better too, because I don't want these buildings getting smashed. So very good little addition. So one last little thing that I didn't tell you about Capital Steel is if I pull them 2 gondolas out of the way, from about this point back is insulated, and this acts as my programming track. I made this little panel up here, and what it allows you to do is you can select this toggle from track power to programming, or you can put it in the off position center. So this is a 3-position switch. And then I have another switch over here, so you can, the top up is for the ESU low programmer, and then if you go down, that'll feed off of the PR3 from the Digitrack system. I also put this little external plug so that because when my workbench is down here, I can plug in a test track and test it on the bench. So I always get lots of questions on how big the room is. The room is 11 by 14, about the size of a standard bedroom. We're standing in the doorway now, and I'm just panning across so you can get an idea how big or small the room is depending on who you talk to. I really maximize the use of the space available in the room. I have very generous aisle widths. As you can see, this aisle area here is probably close to 40 inches across. So 2 people can comfortably cross in there. The tightest portion of the layout in the aisleways is right here between Sayrehurst and the end of the peninsula. And that's why Sayrehurst has this odd shape, is because I kind of followed the lane around. The approximate distance between the end of the peninsula and over here is about 30 inches. So, that again, 2 operators can cross very easily during sessions and not have an issue. And building of the center false wall here really helped break up the scene, because I didn't want people in Lakehurst standing here and being able to see Brown's Yard. I wanted to kind of enforce an idea of distance. So now we're standing in the aisleway in the end of the peninsula and Sayrehurst, and as you can see, again, this aisle is also very generous, about 30 inches. So the yard operator can stand here and operate, and then someone can now operate in Englishtown without having an issue of space. And so one last thing I like to show everybody is the layout is set for nighttime. I've accomplished this by putting some blue LED rope lights up behind. As you can see, there's like 2 pieces that are hanging down I got to fix. But overall, you know, it does really good. It puts a lot of ambient light off so you can still see. Gives you the effect of a bright moonlight. And when you add in all the street lights and stuff, it really achieves a good effect. Okay, so one last thing I wanted to show you before we go. I've gotten a lot of questions about the keys. Why do I have the keys? So the keys serve for 2 functions. Number one, if we're running a display running, we're not doing operations, and I just want to run trains. My fear was always that what if somebody hits one of these and puts a turnout out of position? Well, if I turn the key, it powers down this panel. Now none of the turnouts can be operated. They are fixed in their position. So essentially you lock the panel so nothing could be changed. The other thing that happens here is, what if there's an electrical problem in this panel, especially during an op session? I can isolate the panel and still keep the rest of the 12-volt system running and have the other control panels operational and just isolate this one. So it's kind of the 2 functions that's going on here with the key. Each panel, I made sure to wire in the LEDs so that when you change position, the normal route is indicated with green. So that is the position where I want the turnouts to be. And the red is the diverging route, or the alternate position. So this way, at a quick glance, I can glance around the room and view all the panels and see that we're lined properly for running. Here at the engine facility, I also have done this. I've installed a blue LED, so when I turn track power off, it routes it to the blue LED, kind of like a blue flag. That means that nothing can move. So now the track is powered down. And then you just clear it and it puts track power back on. Okay, everyone, so there you go. So there's the tour of the lab. I hope you all enjoyed walking around, seeing all the progress that we made. And you know what, I'm just making this video, and it really dawned on me, it's going to be 4 years that we've been building. 4 years ago, May 2015, I put out my first benchwork video. And, it's come a long, long way. It's running really good. I do have some issues going on. If you're following on the Facebook page, I talked about it in a live video. Last session, there was a lot of derailments, a lot of frustrations, and I've traced it back to 2 major things. And they're actually not that bad. They're easy fixes. Number one is all the cars need to be standardized. I guess in all the rush to get everything together, and there's so much going on and overwhelmingness, that I was buying large groups of cars to fill the schedule out, that I forgot to check all these cars. I've had a lot of cars that are too light. The metal wheel sets I was buying, I'm having a lot of problems with them. Some of them are out of gauge, but it's not so much the gauge, it's the profile. They don't fit the NMRA profile on that gauge that I have. And those are the cars that are really derailing and giving us a lot of problems during op sessions. So what I've started a couple weeks ago is starting to convert the whole fleet back to microtrains, plastic, low profile wheels. Just did a big test yesterday. 32 cars with 3 locomotives. No single derailment. Not a problem. I ran it backwards. I ran it through turnouts backwards. Nothing. So just by grooming the cars, I have solved a lot of the running issues that we had during the op session that's come up. The second group of issues that I'm having is with the tortoises. Looking and doing research on Circuitron's website and reading their frequently asked questions, some of the tortoises may not be perfectly centered, so consequently the points aren't shifting over fully. So the quick fix that I've tried is by upgrading the spring tension and going to a thicker gauge wire. and that solved some issues on a couple of the turnouts. There's still some more that need to be fixed. And that's an ongoing process that I'm undertaking right now, because I'm kind of put everything at a pause right now. Number one, because of time, with my family vacation coming up and all that. And I want to get these problems fixed, because I don't want my operators to get too frustrated that they don't want to operate here anymore. So I'm undertaking those projects now to correct those problems. The other major problem that I showed you was that track section down there in Lakewood. The transitions from those curves to the microtrains number 6s, they're a little bit rough. There's different like tie heights and stuff. So I think the overall solution to fix that area there is just going to take out all that track, and I'm going to build fast tracks turnouts. So there's a standardized height, and that should solve all the issues through there. Now, it's not that bad. I mean, with that 32 car train that I just ran the other day, it made it through there no problem. But there is some locomotives that have little bumps and stuff like that. So I think by fixing that, that'll solve that issue. So putting those little issues aside, I think made some tremendous progress in 4 years. Scenery's going up now. This whole section is done. I just got to come back and do the detail work. We're going to be working on the Dayton area. That scenery is going to be wrapping up here very shortly, and I'm actually going to start doing two things at once. I'm going to start doing the scenery down in Jamesburg and get that going. So hopefully get a lot of progress, and then I'm going to come out all the way out to the end of the peninsula, and we're going to stop here so I can work on ripping that track out and do that. And so, you know, the locomotive fleet's running really good. I can't complain anywhere there. I got all the cars that I need. I just got to go back and tweak them, like I said, and I think the layout will be in where I want it to be in my mind. So very happy. You know, I have no overall complaints. So we're going to put a wrap on this video. I hope you all enjoyed the tour of the layout. I hope it answers a bunch of questions. I know that it seems like the recurring same questions come up, so hopefully maybe this will answer a bunch of questions. I also give you a better idea of how the layout looks, because I know a lot of you look at it through the little camera. And my operators, when they come here for the first time, they're like, oh, I get it now. So hopefully I did some different angles that I don't usually put in my videos, like up in the Helix and the SA Junction, so that'll help you out. So, and with that, if you're seeing this video for the first time and you like what you see, please subscribe to the channel and follow along, because I know we'd love to have you following along. There's going to be a lot more progress coming up over the next year. And if you haven't done so already, go over and check out our Facebook page and our Instagram account, because I'm always posting daily updates of all the status and all the projects that we're undertaking. And otherwise, that's all I have for this time. And make sure you tune in next month so you can see how we finish up the Amboy secondary down there out in the family room. And otherwise, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.